Alright, here we go. Game number 1 between King Morgan and Galactic Wino. Round of 16, best of 3 of this third Offworld Trading Company tournament. And this map is actually looking very similar to the other maps we've had so far today. A little bit more water. Dry ice literally everywhere. With a fair amount of aluminum and iron available, but almost no carbon. Playing scavenger, I guess, possible, but not particularly well recommended. And then once again, almost the entire map is covered in dry ice. You would have to be trying to avoid it this time. So I don't imagine we're going to see a scavenger here. And instead, I'm going to expect something like Expansive in this area, maybe Robotic somewhere. And then it'll basically just be a game of chicken. See who I think wants to found in this area first. And then whoever doesn't, it gets to kind of select from the remaining slightly less desirable locations. We'll just have to see what happens. Nobody's gone for it yet. Only 25,000 debt at this point that they're going to need to take on. And Galactic Wino is going to be the one to pull the trigger first, grabbing up Robotic, just taking up a little bit of iron with that found, and then interestingly enough, kind of spreading out his buildings a little bit. But getting down 1 metal mine and 2 steel mills, making sure he's got plenty of iron ready to go. Whereas King Morgan, he has founded, it looks like, in a patch of aluminum. Gotten a little bit of that for himself. Nearby to water, nearby to a little bit of silicon. And the iron that he needs is a fair distance away, but as an expansive player, that should not hurt him too badly. Galactic Wino, already HQ level 2. No big surprise, Robotics always want to be maintaining a lead in headquarters in some fashion, or they are going to be in trouble later in the game in a 1v1 situation. So already hitting HQ level 2, just getting down that extra steel he's going to need, that extra iron, the 1 aluminum tile, fairly close to him. And he should be all set to be heading already toward HQ level 3. Looks like he's actually been purchasing aluminum for the moment, driving that price up, maybe not identifying the fact that his opponent already has almost all of what he needs. But King Morgan is a little bit slow off the blocks this game. Throwing down 2 steel mills and an iron mine, but the iron mine coming out so late compared to the steel can definitely be a bit of an issue, as the steel mills were sitting there doing very, very little for a short period of time that game at the start. Claim auction coming out. Once we're done with this, we'll look at the black market once again. Yeah, I don't want to let that go for 9,000 this early in the game. I'll be a bit surprised if King Morgan doesn't push this one pretty hard. He does not have a lot of debt going on, and so he can definitely fight Galactic Wino for this. Despite the fact that Galactic Wino is robotic. 28,000 though. That's getting pricey. Looks like King Morgan doesn't want to push to the 32. And he's going to go ahead and let that extra claim go on over to Galactic Wino. An understandable decision. 32 is very expensive. King Morgan has an extra claim coming when he upgrades,
With this new expansion, we have
which he's just managed to do. He's got 5 claims now available to him. And on top of that, he is expansive, so he's already going to be ahead of Galactic Wino in claims over the course of the game. So I'm not really surprised by that decision. Galactic Wino does use that extra claim just to grab up a little bit more steel at this point in the game. And he is already HQ level 3. This is what I'm talking about as a robot. This is what you got to do. You got to stay ahead in upgrades. That's how you can maintain your claim lead, is just by upgrading so fast, because you don't have to pay aluminum for it. You don't have to pay glass for it. Both of those things are absolutely fantastic for trying to speed through this early phase of the game. And he's also gotten very aggressive and frozen out King Morgan's steel. And King Morgan has already committed almost all of his claims around the map. He's gotten a little extra iron grabbed up. He's grabbed silicon. He's grabbed water. And he is going to use that last one to just add to his steel. But that's going to be his only steel mill operating for the next minute of this game. And 1 steel mill, even with 2 adjacency bonuses, really isn't going to cut it. And he's going to have to find some way to counterattack against Galactic Wino. Now Galactic Wino has left himself in a bit of a vulnerable position. He has 6 tiles all right next to each other. Power surges are available. We should talk about that for just a moment. We do have mules, pirates, magnetic storms. Good thing players avoided scientists this game, huh? Power surges, adrenaline boosts, network viruses, dynamite, and of course goon squads available this game. And look at this power surge. How gross would that be if King Morgan can scrape together the cash for it? He does have it, but he has not chosen to do anything about it just yet. And in fact, already steel has been pushed to the point where these are pretty much all just losing money right now. Not really where you want to be. Iron, a bit pricey. King Morgan actually holding on to quite a lot of iron, having identified that his opponent moved out of his metal mines like that. Now, there are still 2 adjacency bonuses running on this metal mine, which is an important detail. He's on 3.5 iron a second instead of the expected 2, so maybe this isn't going to work out as well for King Morgan as he would hope, but I still don't mind the general idea behind the play of holding on to all that iron for an extended period of time to try and force that awkward situation. I still think a power surge is exactly what I want to see through here before long, though. Just shut all of it down. Don't let him do any of it. Perpetual motion coming out this early when players really haven't secured all of their power yet this game is kind of a big deal. Galactic Wino going to push pretty hard for this one again. He has a bit of power available, and so this is going to be kind of nice for him. As a robot, he does spend an awful lot of power on things like electronics factories, well, electronics factory really isn't too bad, but on things like these steel mills even. And so it is nice not to have to pay that price for sure. And of course, all of his ships also taking up, all of his little blimps, trucks, whatever you want to call them, taking up additional power instead of fuel for the robotic faction. Alright. Well, King Morgan, he's got an upgrade available. He's going to want to take that. There it is. Go ahead and making use of it. I would expect to see some food of some sort here, maybe some glass furnaces. He's actually also going to rush into power first, in fact. Not a bad decision. He has frozen his opponent's power, so that price is just going to keep going up for the time being. And that's what he's going to choose to move into first. Interestingly enough, he did, it should be noted, take this far away, high silicon, instead of choosing to rely on the nearby low silicon that he could have selected. Galactic Wino still about 1 full headquarter upgrade ahead of his opponent, once again, where you want to be as a robot. Always want to be leading those upgrade levels. And I do find it interesting that he has chosen to take a medium elemental quarry on carbon for himself. So that's 1.5 carbon a second, instead of relying on the dry ice kind of around his base. It should also be noted, you can feel Galactic Wino being a little bit cramped in here because he's got this cliff so close to his base, and maybe he can't choose exactly where he wants to expand his buildings. An adrenaline boost has come down, the first one of the game. Always important to note when those are available. Boosting out power, boosting out a little bit of steel, a little bit of iron. That is 7 iron a second from that tile. Big benefit from having the power right next to it right now. That is a really, really, really big deal in these matchups. Even with iron being so inexpensive at the moment, it's still definitely worth paying attention to. Chemical short coming through. King Morgan actually going to get some kind of benefit out of that. Having almost 100 chemicals through the duration of the short, it looks like he's going to sell some of those out. Just make a nice, tidy little profit off of it. And he should be very close to hitting HQ level 4 at this point. I am worried about the fact he hasn't even ever finished using his claims through HQ level 3. And none of his claims successfully made him any money, because he committed all of them to power, which is simply paying down debt in the moment. It's not necessarily a bad idea, but it is something you have to watch out for. Geothermal auction comes out. It looks like Galactic Wino is going to pick this one up as well. That is a lot of auctions. I think all of them over to Galactic Wino so far this game. But despite that fact, he only has about 100,000 debt to his name. Still in that double B bond rating, so only at a 12% interest rate. King Morgan does hit HQ level 4, and at the same time scraps out his solar panels. I'm not sure about that, mostly because you've already got 6 extra claims. Do you really need to scrap 3 of your buildings in that moment, or can you just expand those buildings out elsewhere and then worry about scrapping once all of that is done, just in case the game state changes for some reason? If you see a solar flare coming, if your opponent does something particularly weird like scrap out of his power already. I'm just worried about that kind of play that aggressively. It's something I do myself all the time. But we do see King Morgan has managed to use up all of his claims. Galactic Wino also having done exactly the same. Despite having just hit HQ level 5, he is moving into some farms himself. He's got electronics factories down. He's got dry ice condensers providing better adjacency bonuses for those electronics factories. Also very important to note. And a magnetic storm hits on King Morgan. Just a very light hit is what that feels like. It goes ahead and knocks out some silicon, some water, some iron. It's followed up again almost immediately. I don't know if I like the magnetic storm choice at this point in the game. There's just not a whole lot of valuable stuff flying through the air to create a really great target for it. Power Surge does run into the Goon Squad right after hitting this particular steel mill, so it's not going to extend into this food. And I'm a little bit worried about that. The Power Surge could have targeted the food very specifically, and it chose not to. So that's a bit of a strange thing this game. Also worth paying attention to is the fact that Galactic Wino has not secured any water this game whatsoever. By building these farms and relying on them, honestly, as his best income at this point in the game, he's left himself very open to King Morgan doing something like just raising that water price and kind of forcing maybe a bit of an awkward transition that Galactic Wino doesn't like. And as soon as he makes that transition, then King Morgan can drop the price back down and stay in the food himself. All those kind of plays are going to be available to King Morgan because of this choice not to acquire any water, any silicon in this game by Galactic Wino. Geotherm auction. I'm just going to wait this out. Is it going to go to Galactic Wino again? He's not that far behind in the debt area. Only got 36,000 more than his opponent, despite having taken all these auctions. And he stays aggressive on them. 24,000 for a geotherm. I don't mind that at all. He's going to go ahead and grab it. That does push his debt, once again, pretty high. Staying in that double B rating, though, so he's still alright, even with the $120,000 of debt. Worth noting that King Morgan has managed to push himself up to HQ level 5. Got 5 claims he has not yet decided what to do with or does not have the resources for just yet. Going to want to see him do something with those soon. Wouldn't be surprised to see the electrolysis reactor here, the glass furnace over in this area. Maybe a bit of misplacement on these, by the way. Could have been moved down just a little bit to guarantee access to the dry ice if he needed it. The advantage of their current placement is they're a little bit further away in case of certain black market items, but those black market items, things like EMPs, aren't really available this game. So I think just a little bit of a misstep there. Oh, here we go. Here come the dry ice condensers. That's the kind of thing you like to see. Most of the time, not as good this game, really. But still going to get something done, at least. And that's all of King Morgan's claims gone. Nobody really moving in. Oh, here we go. This is what we're looking for. Galactic Wino has managed to push to an off-world market. Let's go ahead and take a look at how good that's going to be this game. Food is looking very nice at 571 right now. And a black market effect got blown by King Morgan, not tearing through the boosted Goon Squad off-world market that's available right now. However, this thing needs to be used by Galactic Wino. He has not. There he goes. He's got that shipment running, finally. That took a little while longer than it really should have to get going. Food is good for the off-world. Everything else is looking just a little bit lackluster. So it's basically just the food, it looked like. That's really great to send. And after that, you're going to be looking at something like water and oxygen, really. Not the best off-worlds available. Glass is okay, too. But very rarely do you actually want to send glass off-world. But Galactic Wino, he's got to that off-world. He's got the boost. He's got the Goon Squad. This is the kind of thing that robots can do sometimes, just by taking such a fast, tearing lead. King Morgan is trying to return with his own off-world, but it is completely undefended, A. No boost on it. And it's still running very far behind Galactic Wino's at this stage. He is going to need to be selling enough resources that he can buy at least 5 of his own stock. That's all he needs to get. So just 1 more right now. Shouldn't be too difficult to accomplish. And then start these launches himself. Try and get these boosts going. Try and get himself defended. All of these things are going to be important steps to be taking at this stage of the game. Financial instruments coming out. Both players about equal debt right now. So these are going to be equally valuable immediately. But I think Galactic Wino will likely be the one to end up with this. King Morgan keeps accruing just a bit of debt at a time, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, whereas Galactic Wino's been successfully paying his off this game with all of the power that he's managed to acquire. But doesn't look like he's so interested in this one. He's going to let it go. Let King Morgan grab up that extra debt, try and get some extra discounted stock purchased. King Morgan, you got to get one more. You got to get one more. There it is. All right, there we go. We've got a bit more of a game on our hands now. However, you can see this Offworld is now sitting here idle, doing absolutely nothing. Not really where you want it to be. There it goes, starting a launch finally. Still undefended, still no boost available for it. This is really crucial what Galactic Wino does here and now with this particular black market. He's got two great options realistically. I think if I were him, I would just grab that boost up again. He's got these buildings started. I want to see a boost taken. I want to see more Offworld boosts going out. But think of a dynamite. Oh, wow. Mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. That's really all I have to say about that. Look, knocking down a Chem Lab is great and all, but look, there's an Offworld market right here. Galactic Wino just assuming it's undefended. Oh, it is defended now. Still, though, you've got goon squads ready. I don't like blowing up a Chem Lab at all. Look at this. You've got a 7,000 adrenaline boost available for your goon squad at Offworld. You can hit your Chem Labs with that. You can hit a farm with that. And you're going to throw a dynamite at a Chem Lab? I don't like that at all. I don't think that's a particularly strong play. Galactic Wino still in a dominant position, don't get me wrong. King Morgan is starting to try and, it looks like, abuse his water situation that he's got going on. You can see Galactic Wino, he doesn't have access to fuel, he doesn't have access to water, and so there is the potential for King Morgan just to be buying these things up, driving those prices higher and higher and higher, and starting to cause a serious problem for Galactic Wino. King Morgan has actually selected to move into a second Offworld market, and it is adjacent to his initial one, so he does have the ability to just start throwing out absolutely massive adrenaline boosts the moment he's got access to that Offworld market, or sorry, that black market again in 40 seconds. Galactic Wino only now moving into his second Offworld, and it is separated from his initial one. So even though he is back to boosting that Offworld, a very important play, I think. It is worth paying attention to the fact that he's got extra queues of food going right now. That's not really what he's looking for, given that, you know, food's already kind of in a really awkward spot, and losing him a drastic amount of money. I don't even want to know what this boosted farm was losing him each second. Ugh. Can you imagine? King Morgan, though, he hasn't shut down his own food, despite the fact that he's making it ridiculously expensive to produce. This has just turned into a very awkward game. Black market's available. I want to see this boost taken, and I want it going right now. Just right there. Or right here. I don't really care. One of the two. Pick one. There you go. Now it's hitting the hacker array. That'll be available faster, and I expect to see some water hacks coming out any moment. Galactic Wino has plenty of money set aside. I want him to be securing his own stock right now. Definitely the kind of thing you want to be doing, I think. When you're kind of in this awkward position, you can take that immediate advantage that you have in the moment in securing your own stock rather than waiting for your opponent to go ahead and get to it first. I think that's the kind of thing he needs to be doing, because look at the sheer amount of cash King Morgan is actually sitting on right now. $230,000 is what he's sitting on. He's got double boosted Offworlds of ridiculousness. He's burning all kinds of money in farms, but we're not going to worry about that for the moment. It's probably not actually too bad.
Your stock is being bought.
Galactic Wino burning all kinds of money in farms. Man, can you picture a network virus just like right up in here? Just this network virus that says, oh man, look at you, you're actually just straight up dead. And Galactic Wino, you can tell he doesn't have any money. It's all going into this pit right here. It's about $600 a second just flying away. It's just leaving. It's gone forever. It's never coming back. Power's down to $2. Galactic Wino's advantage there has kind of evaporated, and King Morgan's pushed to the point where he is halfway there. He is halfway to that kill at this point. He needs to keep buying stock.
Your stock is being bought.
There he goes. He's got enough money to keep that stock buy-in going. He wants to be doing it more, like sell these chems, maybe even sell out of some water. Just get that stock secured now before Galactic Wino realizes the extent of the predicament that he's in and secures it himself and kind of keeps pushing this game in its awkward way. in my opinion, is what needs to be happening right now. But since Galactic Wino isn't securing it himself, oh, there he goes. It wasn't going to be a problem for King Morgan.
A slowdown
These
strikes.
farms, man. I don't know what to say about these farms. They're still just sitting there. Giant money infernos. That's all they are. Nobody's making steel either. Everybody's spending steel to transition. Nobody's making any. This slowdown strike could be pretty big. I think it might be too late for it to actually change the game and the course of how it's going right now, but this slowdown strike could be pretty big. There is an electronic shortage coming through. Once again, a player choosing to boost their own weak resource with a shortage rather than attack their dominating opponent's strong resource. I don't know if I like it. Actually, I'm sure that I don't like it. I want to see these water surpluses coming through. If your opponent's going to be relying on that, surplus the water. Buy up some water if you've got to.
Price manipulation begins.
That kind of thing can make a big, big difference in my opinion. Here came the sell down from King Morgan. He's sitting on 454 out of the almost 600,000 that he's going to need to finish up this game. Whereas Galactic Wino down at 125-ish out of the 400,000 he needs to clean up this game. That stock advantage is a big deal. About a $200,000 gap between these two players. But despite that, oh wow, King Morgan bought very heavily into that. And he's actually going to get away with it too. That's ridiculous. King Morgan likely identifying that despite the fact that there was an electronic shortage coming through, which was clearly his opponent's primary resource, he can scroll and he can see his opponent not having a lot of money in cash. Or sorry, not having a lot of money in resources, but having a lot of cash. And so it's safe to buy into a shortage at that point, when you know that your opponent isn't actually sitting on those resources to punish you. Now, I don't know what's going on with King Morgan. I think that Galactic Wino is just paying down debt, continuing to extend this game out the best that he can. More and more shortages coming out. This one on iron. Once again, King Morgan buying very heavily into that. Galactic Wino has pushed to the point where he is at 70% of what he needs to kill King Morgan, but I think King Morgan should be sitting close. Yeah, it's going to be close. King Morgan, did he repair this Offworld? All of this is... Oh, Galactic Wino definitely got the strong point there, but King Morgan has plenty of resources available. He gets the red button and the game. I like the choice not to repair the Offworld, identifying it wasn't necessary, just to cost resources. If he had hit that button, I'm betting the red plus wouldn't have been up there and that game would have kept going and continued being more and more dangerous for King Morgan by the second. Alright. Well, guys, that was an interesting one. We saw the water punish. Called it back at HQ5, HQ4, just HQ5 once we had been absolutely certain that Galactic Wino hadn't secured that water and was depending on a water resource to make his money with his off-world markets. You can see it hurt him. It hurt him quite badly buying up all that water. $221,000 purchased. Even when you count in these water launches, like just making all this food, like even with all the food that he made, let's just clarify that. He was making food the entire time, right? Made $138,000 off of it, or sorry, $161,000 selling it, but still had to buy $138,000 in order to do his off-world launches. Just created a super awkward situation where you've actually bought more on-world than you've sold, all because of King Morgan's water nonsense that he was pulling that game. So that's really what turned the game. We can see that King Morgan never caught up, even a little bit, in off-world launches, despite his aggressive placement and use of adrenaline boosts. It was the on-world that did it. It was that hacker array. And just identifying and reading the map better, identifying the weakness in his opponent's economy and going after it. So a strong win. Strong win for King Morgan in game one, I have to say.